In order to fulfill her late boyfriend's wish, a girl and her best friend climbed an abandoned tower that was 10,000 meters high. They scattered the boyfriend's ashes from the top. Afterwards, they took photos at the top of the tower to gain internet traffic. The best friend even dangled in midair with bare hands, allowing Becky to control the drone for shooting. The sight of her hanging with one hand was enough to make anyone's palm sweat. However, this was not thrilling enough. The best friend encouraged Becky to do the same. Becky looked down and was immediately scared, her legs going weak. But with her best friend's encouragement, she slowly climbed down, and trusting her life to her best friend, the best friend took out her phone and captured this thrilling moment. But the hand holding Becky unconsciously loosened a bit. Fortunately, Becky climbed up in time, recalling the thrill just now. The two were still not satisfied, but soon, the real thrill was about to come. As the saying goes, it's easy to go up the mountain but hard to come down. Due to the ladder's disrepair over the years, screws fell off when Becky was climbing down, and the ladder began to shake violently. Becky, who was already extremely scared, was trembling all over. Gradually, more and more screws were shaken off. Fortunately, the best friend was strong enough to hold onto the safety rope tightly. Becky was suspended in the air at a height of 10,000 meters, screaming loudly. The best friend quickly wrapped the rope around the railing, then used all her strength, preparing to pull Becky up little by little. However, in the middle of the process, there was a close call. In this way, the best friend successfully pulled Becky up little by little. Becky, who had picked up a life, was scared to the point of wetting herself. Just as the two were celebrating their narrow escape from death, they suddenly found that the ladder was broken in the middle. The backpack containing water and food also fell on the signal wave. Moreover, Becky's thigh was also cut with a deep wound. After a simple bandage, she took out her phone to call for help, but there was no signal at all on this 10,000-meter high tower. Fortunately, in the first aid kit, they found a telescope and a flare gun. The best friend observed with the telescope, but there was no sign of anyone in this desert. Without food and water, if they couldn't get rescue for a long time, they would die of dehydration. In order to save themselves, the best friend thought of a way. The phone had no signal, probably because the place was too high. As long as they edited a rescue message in advance, then tied the phone with a rope, and let it fall to a certain height, the rescue message might be sent out. In order to make the phone lower, the best friend climbed down the broken ladder, grabbed the lowest step with one hand, and let the phone fall as much as possible. But she didn't hear the prompt sound of the successful sending of the rescue message. The best friend finally gave up. After climbing up, she thought of another method, that is to protect the phone well, and then throw it down directly. As long as the phone was not broken, the rescue message could be sent successfully. As soon as she said it, the best friend immediately took off her shoes, put the phone in, filled it with more clothes, and then threw it straight down, waiting for the arrival of the rescue team. The best friend observed the shoes with a telescope, but found a man making a phone call under the tower. At this time, the phone had already been smashed. The two of them, like grabbing a life-saving straw, shouted frantically at the man, but because the distance was too far, the man couldn't hear at all. In a fit of anger, she threw down her shoes, but still was not noticed. Then she threw down another shoe. The dog finally found it. The man also turned his head and found the suddenly appearing shoes. He didn't think much about it and left, seeing that the hope that had just been rekindled was about to be shattered. Becky was about to use the flare gun when she saw the situation. But she was quickly stopped by her best friend. Because it was hard for the other party to see the flare gun during the day, and there was a caravan not far away. Obviously, the men came to camp. Wait until the evening to fire the flare gun. The other party will definitely be able to see. Looking at the barbecue stove set up by the man next to the caravan, the two of them, who had been hungry for a day, were drooling. In this way, they waited until night fell. Becky fired the flare gun, and the whole night sky was illuminated by the fire. The man finally found the two people trapped on the high tower, but the man didn't call for rescue, but came to their car, smashed the car window, went into the car, and stole their car. The hope that had just been rekindled was shattered again. The two spent a thrilling night. Early the next morning, the rescue team did not come. The two realized that the rescue message had not been sent out. If they didn't save themselves soon, they would soon starve to death. Their only method was to get the backpack on the signal tower, take out the drone from inside, stick a rescue note on the body of the drone, and then control the drone to fly to the nearest inn from the tower. After saying that, the best friend tied the safety rope and began to climb down. Fortunately, there was a close call. The best friend continued to climb down. But because the length of the rope was limited, she couldn't reach the backpack. The best friend made a bold decision, that is to untie the safety rope, then grab it with one hand, and let herself go down as much as possible, but the length was still not enough. Then she actually ignored the road behind, let go of the safety rope, and jumped directly onto the signal wave. She found that the whole ladder had all fallen down. But fortunately, she got the backpack and there was a glimmer of hope. The best friend, who had been sunburned for a day and a night, picked up the water and drank it, but how to go up became a problem. Because the length of the rope was not enough, the best friend thought of a way. That is to fix the backpack on the selfie stick, then use the selfie stick to hook the rope. Make a hard jump and hold the backpack, and then Becky started to pull the rope, pulling the best friend up little by little. Just as the best friend was about to grab the broken ladder, she suddenly slipped under her feet. Looking at the safety rope that was not gripped, Becky slowly looked down, fearing that the best friend would die on the high tower.
Becky! I landed on the back!
Becky immediately pulled the rope and slowly pulled the best friend up. After drinking a sip of water, Becky immediately wrote a rescue note with an eyebrow pencil and stuck it on the drone. Then controlled the drone to fly to the nearest inn. However, it didn't fly far before a low battery warning appeared. At this time, if she insisted on going her own way, the drone would land in the desert, and no one would find it at all. She could only fly the drone back and think of a way. Becky began to control the drone to navigate. But at the last moment, the power was cut off. Fortunately, Becky successfully caught the drone. But charging the drone became a problem. In this way, it was late at night. Becky suddenly found that she was the only one on the high tower, and her best friend had died long ago and was being eaten by vultures. It turned out to be just a nightmare. Looking at the flickering signal light, she suddenly thought that she could steal electricity. Early the next morning, Becky drank some water to replenish her strength, and then climbed up the pole. After climbing to the top with all her strength, she wrapped the hot bulb with her shirt, then unscrewed it. Then she inserted the drone charger into the lamp wick. But because the length was not enough, she could only take off her own pendant and put it into the lamp wick to conduct electricity. The drone finally charged, but it took a full 4 hours to charge. She could only keep one action and persist until it was fully charged. This was a great test of physical strength and endurance. In this way, she persisted from morning to noon. The drone was half charged. At this time, Becky was already exhausted. The rotten wound attracted vultures. The vulture attacked her. During the resistance, the backpack accidentally fell. She had to fight with the vulture and the extreme endurance of human beings. Finally, she persisted until it was fully charged. Becky climbed down the pole and immediately controlled the drone to fly to the nearest inn. The flight of the fully charged drone was very smooth. In this way, she flew over the vast desert, and the inn was getting closer and closer. Becky's face was also full of hope. However, the hope she had exchanged for her life was shattered again. The driver who hit the drone just took a look, then left. Becky was completely desperate. But what made her even more desperate was still behind. The storm was about to hit. Becky wanted to throw the only remaining phone into the shoes after editing the rescue message. She asked her best friend for shoes, but the best friend said, "I can't help you because I'm down here." It turned out that when she got the backpack, the best friend had already fallen on the signal pot. What Becky pulled up was just a backpack. Afterwards, the one who controlled the drone was always her alone. In fact, the best friend had died long ago. It was Becky who refused to accept the reality, plus hunger, fear, loneliness, despair, and her brain went haywire. So she imagined that her best friend was still by her side.
Didn't really think your scrawny ass could pull me up, did you?
Becky woke up from her fantasy and looked down, only to see the best friend's body being eaten by vultures. She cried helplessly. At this time, the storm came, and the tower was shaking in the wind. Under the attack of the howling wind and flashing thunder, Becky looked at the picture of her playing with her father when she was a child on her phone, and just said,
I tried again, but I'm not gonna make it.
At the same time, Becky's father was also anxiously looking for his daughter. But after searching everywhere, there was still no trace. The next morning, the desert that had been swept by the storm all night was exceptionally quiet. Becky was sitting on the pole, her face was blue and purple, and she didn't move. The rotten wound attracted vultures. The vulture was eating the rotten meat on her wound mercilessly. Just then, Becky, regardless of the vulture's sharp claws, fought with it. After several rounds of fighting, Becky won. She hadn't eaten for several days and needed energy, needed to replenish her strength. Anyway, this world is survival of the fittest. After eating, Becky was no longer afraid. She fixed the safety rope and gradually slid down. When the rope was used up, she released the safety buckle, then jumped down and successfully jumped onto the signal pot. Looking at the two-legged beast that was fighting with her for food, the vulture was full of aggression. Becky's eyes at this time were as firm as a warrior. The vulture was scared away by this powerful aura. Then Becky edited the rescue message, took off her best friend's shoes, put the phone in, and then said to her best friend's body, "I'm sorry." She also stuffed the shoe with the phone into her best friend's body. Because this time, she wanted to protect the phone better so that it wouldn't be broken. After everything was done, she pushed her best friend's body down. Only a muffled sound was heard on the ground. At the same time, the iron wire of the signal wave loosened. Becky was lying on it, shaking. On the other side, Becky's father, who received the rescue message, drove to the tower. He saw 11 helicopters hovering in the sky, more than a dozen police cars parked under the tower, and a body bag next to the staff. The father was full of despair, but the next second, Becky, who was rescued, ran towards her father. The father and daughter hugged and cried. Looking at her best friend's body, Becky's eyes were full of guilt. After this incident, she told her father that she would never climb the high tower again.